The Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the 16th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. From that time on, after Peter confessed that Jesus was the Messiah, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and undergo great suffering at the hands of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, God forbid it, Lord, this must never happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things. Then Jesus told his disciples, If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit them if they gain the whole world but forfeit their life? Or what will they give in return for their life? For the Son of Man is to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will repay everyone for what has been done. Truly, I tell you, there are some standing here who will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. The Gospel of the Lord. I invite you to be seated. So as most of you know, and is probably the worst kept secret because I have been smiling from ear to ear for the past week, last Saturday I was ordained as a minister of Word and Sacrament in the ELCA. And truthfully, I'm still on cloud nine about it. I can't believe it really happened. And all of you in this community of faith have been so supportive of me on my entire journey. I have received so much love and grace from all of you. So thank you. And while that entire ordination ceremony last week was deeply powerful and deeply moving to me, one particular part stands out in my mind. Pastor Heidi was my sponsor for ordination, and as I was kneeling, Pastor Heidi placed this stole around my neck while Bishop Curry read the beautiful and familiar words of Jesus from the 11th chapter of Matthew's Gospel. Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden light. It was a very powerful and very moving moment for me. I still picture it. But here's my question, friends. How did I go from Jesus being gentle and humble in heart, giving me rest for my soul, assuring me that his yoke is easy and his burden light, to having to preach about get behind me, Satan, and losing our lives to find it in just over 1 week? Did I miss something along the way? But don't worry, it's not just my dilemma. Being the inclusive person that I am, I'm going to pull all of you into this conundrum with me this morning. Just last Sunday, Pastor Heidi preached from the verses in Matthew's Gospel immediately preceding this morning's text. It's when Jesus asked his disciples, Who do you say that I am? And Peter, who usually always gets it wrong, got it right this time. You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And Jesus praises Peter's response. Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah. And I tell you, you are Peter. On this rock I will build my church. That's pretty heady stuff. Just imagine how Peter felt being praised by Jesus himself and told that the entire church would be built upon him. Wow. But wait a minute. How did we move so quickly from blessed are you, Peter, you will be the foundation of Christ's entire church, to get behind me, Satan, you are a stumbling block to me, in just 3 verses? And what kind of choice is Jesus giving all of us today? We can either try to save our lives and then we'll lose them, or we can lose our lives for his sake and then we'll find them? Huh? That's not really a great marketing pitch that Peter had for a new church, or for any church for that matter. So just what's going on here? And what is Jesus asking his disciples, and what is he asking all of us? And I personally don't like just those two choices, losing my life or save it, or having to lose it to save it. Can't I have a third option, maybe an option C, none of the above? As we try to understand just what Jesus is talking about, let's begin with the first line of our text this morning. From that time on. The author of Matthew is signaling a major shift in Jesus' ministry. Jesus is now deliberately moving toward Jerusalem and the pain and suffering that awaits him there. He's now upping the intensity of his teachings to his disciples. He's becoming much more direct. His upcoming passion is now the major focus of his teaching. From that time on, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and undergo great suffering at the hands of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. Notice that Jesus is highlighting four key facts. He must go to Jerusalem, he must undergo great suffering, he will be killed, and on the third day he will be raised. But notice Peter and his disciples' responses. None of them, not one, asked, "What do you mean you will be raised?" They only focus on the pain and suffering part. They're only focusing on the bad news. They've completely missed the good news. And friends, isn't that how life unfolds for most of us? Especially when we look at all the problems in the world, or our own personal struggles with family, our health. Somehow the good news just seems too far away. Or when we have it, it's just too fleeting to have any real impact. In fact, if we compare our readings from Matthew's Gospel last week and today, they wonderfully capture life in all its messiness. We can go from a high, "Blessed are you, Simon Peter," to a low, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me," in mere moments. And I've seen a lot of times that's just how our lives unfold. But Jesus is going even further. He's upping the ante. He's telling us we'll have to lose our lives to save them, and we'll have to deny ourselves and take up his cross. I'm going to ask again, can I have an option C, none of the above? In our reading this morning, however, Jesus appears to be giving us only two stark choices. So, if that's the case, what does it mean for us as 21st century disciples of Christ to take up his cross? Where do we even start? Pastor and author Debbie Thomas answers that question beautifully. To take up a cross, as Jesus did, is to stand always in the center of the world's pain, not just to glance in the general direction of suffering and then slide away, but to dwell there, to identify ourselves with those who are aching, weeping, screaming, and dying, to insist that our comfort isn't worth it unless the least and the lost can share in it too. Taking up the cross of Christ, means recognizing Christ crucified in every suffering soul and body that surrounds us, and pouring our energies and our lives into alleviating their pain, no matter what it costs. It means accepting against all the lies in my culture that I will die. It means following up that courageous acceptance with the most important question I can ask. Given my inevitable death, how will I spend this brief, singular, God-breathed life? People of grace, Jesus' command to take up his cross puts us directly in the center of his ministry to care for those most in need and to not be satisfied with the status quo, to not be okay with the pain and suffering in this world, to fulfill our baptismal vows to work for justice and peace in the world in which we live. But, and this is key, Jesus also puts us directly in the center of the promise of the resurrection. The disciples missed that point completely during their exchange with Jesus. Let's not miss it ourselves. Jesus is asking us to live in the world and live in the world's pain, but we know in our hearts the resurrection is coming. So in other words, dear friends, instead of desperately searching for an option C, none of the above, Jesus is offering us an additional choice. Option D, all of the above. Abundant life on earth as his disciples in all of life's joys, pains, suffering. Abundant life caring for all of God's children. He's also offering us eternal and everlasting life. And that's the best option of all. I'll take that one every single time. Thanks be to God. Amen.